Fair fighting rule number 2, no name calling. So there you are. Your partner has just said something or done something to upset you, to hurt you, or any number of other things. The point is, whatever just happened, you want to address it. You want to resolve that issue. So why? Honestly, I ask, why does that attempt to resolve an issue so often turn into a fight instead of being something more akin to an investigation? Well, honestly, I don't have a complete answer for that question. However, I do feel that a major part of the problem is a grotesque lack of communication skills being taught in our public school system. You know, mandatory coursework in our schools that's dedicated to communication skills, that's a cause, that's a fight that I fully support. Well, be that as it may, my objective here isn't to try and correct some societal shortcoming, either by myself or in one short video. However, what I can do is offer some suggestions on how to reduce the possibility of a fight breaking out every time there's a disagreement or a misunderstanding. Before we go too much further, perhaps this would be a good time for me to qualify the title of this video a little bit. To be more precise, perhaps I should have said no derogatory name calling, because I think it's interesting that whenever my wife and I are having a disagreement, whenever my wife and I are having a fight, I'll still say honey, or I'll call her sweetheart, and she'll usually respond by saying, don't call me that, or I'm not your honey. But, in my mind, I don't see any harm in using that kind of name calling. My wife, though, is a name caller. At the start of our marriage, she would call me names in Chinese, and that would mean nothing to me, right? It just gets translated as sound or some noise with no meaning. But as she learned more and more English, she expanded on her name calling. And for me, it just seems very hurtful to hear my wife, my life partner, the one that I love, call me mean names. I don't call her mean names. I don't even think about calling her mean names. It doesn't occur to me. So when she does it to me, it just seems so foreign, so unnecessary, and it just seems so, like I said before, hurtful. I think there is some distinction to be made between name calling when you're goofing around with your family and friends, and name calling when you're in a verbal fight with someone, especially a loved one. Just for an example, I'm 58 years old, and I no longer consider myself to be prematurely bald. At this point in my life, I'm just an old bald guy, right? But back in my 20s, when I was in the military, there was this young, wisecracking guy, and one day in front of everybody in the office, he just says, "Hey, Cass, your forehead is bigger than a forehead." He says, "You've got a 5-head." So, from that day on, I was known as 5-head, right? I thought it was funny back then. I still think it's funny. But, it was derogatory. He was taking a dig at my physical appearance. But for some reason, I didn't take it as an insult or anything. And I'm sitting here wanting to make a distinction But honestly, I don't know if I'm even justified in making that distinction, but I'm not sure what to say. So I may actually begin a little bit off topic here. So let me refocus to name calling of your partner during a fight. So let's use a courtroom for an example. And I'm going to make a sweeping assumption here that each of us has either been inside a courtroom or we've watched a courtroom scene on TV. Now, I'm sure you can cite exceptions to this, but on the whole, you don't observe a whole lot of name calling inside of a courtroom. And if it starts, the judge and the bailiff usually shut it down pretty quickly. And the reasons for this are name calling is insightful, it's distracting, it's superfluous, right? It's not related to resolving the underlying issue. The bottom line here, if it's not related to your goal, and your goal is resolving the underlying misunderstanding or disagreement, if it's not related, don't waste your time. Don't waste anyone's time engaging in it. It's really that simple. You know, name calling works in the exact opposite direction that you're wanting to go. The start of a fight or the fight that you're already in, it's lousy enough. Don't complicate it more than it already is. The balance here is that both partners must agree to this rule, and it must be enforced at the very moment either one of you breaches it. Now, understand that every one of us is different, right? And that means that each of us has different tolerances. You know, some of us are very sensitive to name calling, while others are relatively thick-skinned. Take it upon yourself to understand what your partner's tolerances are, and then respect those tolerances. Just to delve into that a little bit further, please don't be that type of person that knows what sets their partner off and then intentionally pushes those buttons simply to rile their partner up. That's the type of person that very few people like to be around. And if you notice yourself doing that, please recognize it as a character flaw and please take steps to correct that behavior, because it's really not conducive to a healthy relationship. And now for my summary. No derogatory name calling. Just don't do it. That's it. Thank you for watching.